Hey there, welcome to Why We Roll, a tabletop role-playing game design podcast.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre, and Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Throughout the show, Chris and Wythe hope to amplify new creative voices. We'll chat with different TTRPG designers, focusing on the world of indie games.
We take a curious approach to game design, working through a range of mechanical and narrative questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games just so powerful.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
Now it's live, it says.
Wow, we're so alive.
Oh my god.
Dang.
I've never been so alive.
Yeah, I've never felt so live before.
Yeah.
I do feel more awake when it said you are live. It's like, oh, thanks, computer.
So perceived right now.
I feel seen, yeah.
No, wife, perceived, because I'm a toxic internet person.
I see. Apprehended, yes. Well, these all have specialist meanings, and we can get into that. That's why we brought you on, right? To talk about phenomenology, Chris?
Yes.
This is that Eric and Amanda?
Yeah,
okay.
specifically.
Should we do introductions for those of us, for the few people who might not recognize your voices?
I
Stop
believe
now.
we should.
Shame on them.
I know the 7 people who are like, I think podcasts are confusing. I don't know how to use it.
Is that Dan Rather? I don't know why I said that name. It's
Because
the first celebrity I thought
That's the
of.
most
Perfect one.
boomer news anchor I can think of, actually. Is Dan
Yeah,
Rather.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
like
yeah,
maybe
exactly,
Walter Cronkite, but that feels even a generation back. Anyway, who
Yeah.
are you, Eric and Amanda? Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
Hello, I'm Eric Silver. I'm the best DM in podcasting. Everyone says it and talks about it. I've been running Join the Party, which is an actual play Dungeons & Dragons / tabletop RPG podcast for like 7 years now. And the ideas that we did starting Join the Party blossomed into our podcasting business, Multitude, which is a podcast collective studio. And we sell ads for people as well. And, you know, it's very funny starting a Dungeons & Dragons podcast in 2017. And now here we are in 2024. If someone told me we were going to have a whole week of discourse talking about Ticketmaster and whether or not James Dolan would be a good big bad in the Unsleeping City, I would be very surprised. And also I'd be like, why are you a time traveler? How did you get here? Where did you get the technology? So it's wild. And I think that, you know, we're going to talk about actual plays and we're going to talk about podcasting, but it's very, those two worlds seem very much apart when actually they're a lot closer together. If you like see where the money's going.
Ooh.
And I'm Amanda McLoughlin. I am a player on Join the Party. I run Multitude along with Eric, which we started in 2017, same year as Join the Party. And
I thought you were going to be like same year as the Trump presidency.
No, that's 2016 best year of my life.
Oh, 2016, yes, best year of my life.
Right.
That's a running joke with Amanda and I, because in like a month, I got like a terrible job. I got dumped. I got a concussion. And then the Trump presidency began.
Yeah.
So one of my friends they were like door code, and I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say where they live. But their building code is 2016. And every time I do it, I'm like 2016, best year of my life.
Yeah, no, it's truly incredible. And like 2 weeks after that, I was like, "Hey, Eric, a guy I know vaguely from college, and I followed on the internet for years. Do you want to like become friends?" And now we're married. So it's been a whole journey. But before that, just a year before 2016, best year of my life, I was working in financial research and equity research at a giant investment bank. And so reading financial documents and, like Eric said, tracing the money of where media and entertainment starts and where the money comes from, where it goes, and helping to make a living for, us and others every day as independent creators online is what we get to do every day. And I also get to play characters on a TTRPG podcast, which my entire TTRPG career has been captured on Join the Party. I'd done maybe 2 test games before we started episode 1 of campaign 1. So for a long time, I was kind of the avatar for people who may have felt unwelcome in gaming spaces and maybe just hadn't even picked up dice before, where in episode 1, Eric and I pop in to explain what we're doing and why. So at this point, we all have that perspective, but I feel very lucky to have been hopefully that, entry point and kind of foothold for others listening to Join the Party and saying like, I want to check out that gay wedding in episode 1. I don't know what D&D is, but let me hop in. And Eric made it very easy for me and therefore the audience to get in.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that segues really easily and really nicely into something that we ask a lot of our guests that come on, is just how did you get started in the TTRPG space? And I mean, Amanda, we've heard a few people come on and say kind of similar stuff. We were talking to some folks from Twice Rolled Tales. I think they have a kind of similar experience coming into it. Eric, what about yourself?
Well, I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since 1972. I love AD&D. I grew up with the red box. I wasn't allowed outside of my Christian home. And, I really smuggled it while I was watching Edward R. Murrow on the TV. No, I'm just kidding. I started listening to The Adventure Zone like every other person. That's actually where it came from. I'd wanted to play Dungeons & Dragons for a little while at that point because with Community, and then I started listening to Taz, and finally came together. I played like one game with somebody. I played like a level 1 a level 1 halfling ranger. Yes, it was not very, very user friendly, and it was like on a board. It was like on a mat, and I was like, all right,
the whole tactical map.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I guess so. I whatever, and like I did nothing. I like shot one arrow. The only reason why I did it was because I had also read all the books cover to cover by that point because I really wanted to play. So I knew that halflings as rangers, they get a beastmaster. I was going to do the beastmaster subclass, and like they got a partner. And if you played a halfling who was small, you could ride your mastiff, which was a large dog. And I was like, I want to ride a dog and shoot a bow. And it turns out that you get only one action, and if you miss a shot, then you don't get to do it. And then from there, in some of these test games that Amanda's talking about, someone else was supposed to DM, and of course they dropped out at the last second because they didn't want to, and it was too hard. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm DMing this game. And it just kind of like got thrown into it. And by the third session, I made that same person who dropped out cry from the emotional relationship between her character and what was happening. And I'm like, oh, I guess I did a good job. And then it was just kind of off to the races from there.
Very nice.
Nice. Well, crying is really the goal of the game. So, it's really interesting to hear. So y'all are coming to it in the kind of the modern era. It sounds like, in terms of not just like playing the game, but then professionalizing. Can you talk a little bit like how you went from I like this game to I'm good at this to I want to do this all the time? What are some of the steps, I guess? It's probably a big question. But.
No, wife, you've actually activated my trap card. I use Mirror Force. You activated one of the things that I think about all the time. Speaking of the Adventure Zone, did you know that the entire actual play genre, as it is, at this point, the people of Critical Role were still just playing a home game, and they had not ported. This is also a crazy thing. The first episode of Critical Role that got streamed on Geek and Sundry was just a game. It was like 2/3 of their way through their campaign. They just started doing it.
Oofed.
It's absolutely insane. The actual play genre starts because Griffin McElroy is a journalist. He was a games journalist once upon a time, and he got the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragon rules early. He got to read them before everyone else. And then when his brother went on paternity leave, he's like, what if we recorded ourselves doing this new thing that's all happening? Like the fact that 5th edition was good for storytelling in a way that it wasn't before, especially because of the reaction from 4 to 5, how 4th edition was so crunchy and video gamey almost. The fact that it was more of social mechanics and that it was easy to record he got Minds of Phandelver, like he got the thing, this module early. Then that's what turned into the Adventure Zone, and that's how it's all got kicked off. So it's so interesting how like because Dungeons & Dragons, newly owned by Wizards of the Coast and then eventually by Hasbro, had to do a pivot because this game wasn't doing well, and then they really reacted very hard. That's also why Magic users are so OP in Dungeons & Dragons, because all of the people who play tested D&D Next loved Magic. That's why Paladins and Wizards are so OP, and no one knows what to do with a fighter because all of the people who played it just kind of like Magic. In the reaction, so we have a corporate idea making pivots to a game because of sales from before and really overreacting to a small player base that you assume is the large player base. And then, of course, games journalism colliding with that, and then just like needing to make a podcast episode, is all of that stuff being in that whole stew. Though all of those different things are really kind of point to what we find interesting about doing this thing, because I think there's always a lot more going on in actual play and the advent of this genre, this very, very specific, sticky, profitable, parasocial relationship building genre of digital creation in the digital media age. Like it's all a lot deeper if you think about it. And I think that kind of like is the heading to allow us to kind of do what we do at this point.
And both Eric and I, this is not our first, internet project. He, came up in the sort of advent of online video and slam poetry.
Damn, you're just airing me out.
I was a teenage YouTuber, which is always a more difficult end to that same sentence. But I would say for both of us, it's worth doing a project well. And when we started Join the Party, I say we because I was around, but Eric was the one in charge and the one whose idea all this was, and he invited me on. I said great. I'd had a podcast already, and Eric was working somewhere where his job was to listen to the first episode of every D&D podcast that existed at that time in late 2016, early 2017.
It was so bad. It was so bad. No one. It was a media company that had started this like startup inside of it, which just meant like subjugating young people, honestly. And they were creating like a podcast discovery app, and they had these like curators / editors, one of which I was. It was like podcast adjacent. That's where I learned to record and edit for the first time.
Yeah,
which is crazy. I'd wanted to get into podcasting for like 5 years, and that was the first time that anyone taught me how to record, which I find so baffling here in 2024. And yeah, I listened to one of my curations, because I just got into the Adventure Zone, was listening to actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcasts, and like I was listening to the first episode. I had to, because I wanted to put it on this playlist. So I probably listened to the first episode of every single actual play podcast that existed in 2016.
And so coming to the table, it was, we want to do a podcast together. It should be D&D related. And also, Eric very helpfully on the clock has, identified every single thing that makes it difficult to get into a podcast from day one. And so that, initial like whiteboard day where we went into the office of said unnamed company on a Saturday, thank you very much, and, used their whiteboard and sat there eating the free stale pretzel rods and kind of sketched out, what do we want this to be? All the principles. And as Eric said at the beginning, everything really that Multitude is built on now came from that initial meeting of, form following function. And we want it to be a podcast. We want it to be, using actual play to tell a story. How do we flow from there? And how do we make it an experience that, not just we will enjoy, but is built for audio, is accessible to new players, and is not, turning away potential audience members?
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, something that we talk about with some folks on here is just, business development, things like that. And we've been talking a lot interpersonally as well as on the show about just like competitor analysis, looking at all of that. And it's like you had access to just free competitor analysis just right. Well, not free. You were working for it, but you had the access to it just then and there. So you were starting off at such a good spot.
I mean, it was also terrible and the worst, and definitely, and I was stealing from a corporation that treated me
we love wage theft.
I've never had a good boss, which includes at this place, truly. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. We originally identified like these 4 pillars of. Yeah, I mean, at the time it was negative, but it was almost like, we're not going to do this. And I mean, luckily the guy who I started the show with, Brandon Grugel, who's our head of production at Multitude and also is the editor and sound designer, one of the players of Join the Party, is a technical wizard in podcasting, which didn't exist, I think, until recently. Like people who cared about equipment in podcasting, and he was caring about that stuff all the way back in like 2016 from his music background. So it's like well edited and sounding good from the first episode intentionally was like on that list, but at the same time it's like welcome in as many people as possible. I mean, we're talking about all the way back in 2016. You were allowed to be two types of nerds. You were allowed to be Chris Hardwick and you were allowed to be Will Wheaton. And if you weren't one of the two, you had to go sit down and you weren't allowed to go near a microphone. You know, like that's truly where we were at. So it's like just being open-hearted and welcoming was like enough. And then on top of that, it's like we had a strict no pop culture reference policy, because it's like if you were to make a reference that turned someone off immediately, it would turn someone off immediately, or kind of because of the Will Wheaton, Chris Hardwickness of it all, it almost felt like every pop culture reference was a quiz or like a gatekeeping quiz, as everyone knows now, the word gatekeeping. But it's like I think about this all the time, and like the 7th episode of The Adventure Zone, the whole episode is about Tom Bodett. I still have no idea who Tom Bodett is. He was an actor.
Same.
He was an actor did the Motel 6 commercials? Question mark.
I've never heard of this man in my life.
Exactly. And it turns people away. And it's also, I think, an interesting creative exercise to have a rule where all jokes must be like diegetic.
Exactly.
They must be based on in-world humor and in-campaign humor. And I think, Eric, that's a real testament to you, where you're thinking about the audience experience. Like from day one, it wasn't just the players in the room, it was also the audience. And how are they going to be perceiving this, enjoying this, thinking about it? What's going to make them feel turned away or turned off or give them static? And what also is going to welcome them in? Where do we put the break at the end of the episode? From the very beginning, we had after parties, talkback episodes, where we would discuss what happened in the episodes, kind of pull back behind the curtain, answer player questions, where we're getting questions like, what is initiative? Why do you do this? Eric, what did you make up? And what was in your notes? All these ways that we both document the process of making the show and also help people understand more about it, because maybe it's the latent theater kid in me, but I think the more you know about what goes on behind the scenes, the more magical the actual artifice and the actual show is. So that's always been very important to us.
And that was on the main feed. We were the first, and I'm not saying we're not the first people to do talkbacks ever, but I definitely think we were the first actual play podcast to put it at least on the main feed. 100%. This is like before everyone did it as part of their Patreon. Patreon was not as ubiquitous as it was at the time, but definitely I think we're the first one to do it on main feed.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's interesting. It's really interesting hearing y'all's take on it, just because I have been playing these games not since 1972, but since I was a kid, and I don't listen to any of the major podcasts, and only recently have listened to some of them enough to know like what they are, if that makes sense. But I don't I just don't follow them. Like I read the books and play the games and just don't participate. And this show has made us more interested.
I want to say, I wish I was. I feel like I had to come up through someone who falls in love with movies only once Letterboxd started. And then it's like, I'm never going to be the kind of person who just I don't know, went to one, or I never had a local movie theater. This is actually a very good equivalent. Yeah. It's like there was no local movie theater showing the classics.
We could spend all summer sitting in the air conditioning, watching it all go by.
Yeah, I had to I came to it as an adult, and I'm annoyed about it. I found out that a bunch of my friends who I was hanging out with in high school had a D&D game that they didn't have me at, and I was like, what the fuck? This is my job now, guys. Come on.
Rude. That is so rude.
It's tragic.
But it was so
Yeah, that's kind of saying that, because it's surprising. It's like you can't tell. It's not like playing for longer necessarily makes you sort of more empathetic or better at improv or anything like that. But I do wonder about the character of kind of starting in that world and doing AP. So you're kind of connecting the dots for us a bit on getting into it, like how you got started. But how did it grow? So just to kind of continue that forward, it's grown into a much bigger thing. And obviously, it's successful, and congrats on that. How have you, approached taking the story and going from the level of the table? I'm curious, as a GM who's played some streaming games that doesn't run a big successful streaming network, how do you kind of manage that? So it's one thing to be good at GMing, it's another thing to produce a show. I don't know if what came naturally, and again, kind of a big question. You could take it lots of different ways, but how did you kind of go from, okay, I know what I'm doing with my friends to like, I know how to entertain people. And I love, I'll just say, I love what you're saying about gatekeeping. Like, you don't want it to be random pop culture references. Like, you had a list of don'ts. That's awesome. I'm wondering about other pieces that led you to do the things you do now, if that makes sense. Because there's probably more to it than just, I don't know, I'm funny and I don't want to talk about this Tom Bodé character.
There sure is.
Oh God! I mean, you've opened like such a can of worms here as the genre.
But Eric, what if they're gummy worms and you love them?
I do. I love gummy. I love the worms. I love this can of worms that is exploding.
We all love worms. Big worm fans. Yeah,
we're all birds.
I will always stand a worm.
Oh yeah,
I'm a real nightcrawler kind of guy, so that's just what you need to know. I mean, but the reason why I'm jealous, wife, is like because I wish I had. It's like coming to artistic criticism late. Again, I'm really trying to use like movie criticism here because this is some things have changed so much now that Rascal exists. There's like we're finally getting capital C crit in tabletop RPGs outside of the academic realm for I think is for one of the first times in history. So it's like I'm trying to use this to compare to because I do see this as an artistic genre which flourishes and has modes and mediums, but I feel like I came to it by like recreating what I saw, not necessarily seeing the bones, like playing the game. I came through the simulacrum while you came up through like what you were trying to recreate. I think the thing about movies, you know, how like art imitating life, imitating art, imitating life. Like which way do you go? Do you try to make your life like the rom-com because you think that's romantic, or are you making a movie about a thing you remember from your life and then you see it on screen, and then where do like humans interact right there? Actual play is the same thing. Is the actual play show the game you have played, or are you recreating a version of the simulacrum that you have seen that you want to recreate? Is make the art making the art instead of the recreation of the art, which I feel like is more base and pure, which is what I like. You come to the same place, but it's almost like you come from totally different roads.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I can't help but feel like there's a bit of romanticizing that's happening as well, though. Because I also sometimes, like similar to Wythe, I've been playing the Dragon game or some version of it since I was 13.
Yeah.
And there are parts of AP and the vernacular of AP and getting into it that, like, frankly, I don't understand and I don't see the draw of and things like that. And there are times that I wish that I had come into D&D later, like in 5th edition or something like that, just so that, I don't know, there was more of like a vernacular understanding there. But I guess I'm just trying to say that the grass is always greener, for sure.
Agreed.
And I remember when I was first playing D&D, I was just recreating anime that I had seen. So it's like we were already in the simulacrum, you know. It's like it's already happening.
Something you and Eric share from, you know, what I've seen, Chris, of your GMing and style and you as a designer, and something that I love about the way Eric treats the story and the campaigns and join the party is that it is not a closed system. Like every campaign draws from, you know, other games, other game mechanics, from TV, from manga, you know, from movies. And my favorite moments are ones where it's relating to a heist movie or One Piece or, you know, a novel where Eric makes a Frankenstein reference and I'm like, yeah, baby. It's incredibly inviting, and I think just like a richer palette. It's also easier to get into. Nothing in the world, not even me thinking Eric was cute and wanting to work with him, would have gotten me to listen to like a 4-hour unedited stream of Critical Role. Like it simply isn't happening. Yeah. But knowing that, you know, we had a rule again that all of our episodes would be, I think, under an hour at first. We aimed for like 45 minutes to an hour. Maybe
yeah,
right
we were like shooting
mark.
For like 55, and now that's grown. Now that people get more. Well, I mean, the other thing I want to say is like we're talking about like all the way back in 2016. I'm considered very old and like you don't know what you're talking about. It's like people think that actual plays didn't start before 2021.
Yeah.
Other than Critical Role and Dimension 20, you know, it's like we're out of mode in the thing that you're saying to me. Like I'm saying, I know I'm out of mode and people don't know what I'm talking about. So it's like it's very interesting the way that I think that we have seen these like waves of actual play actually come forward, like an artistic like medium in schools and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think making it for an audience from day one and having the audience, be like staying ahead is very important. We're not, missing episodes because we're not able to meet on a given day each week in terms of like professionalizing and treating this like a job. We had full time jobs. We had to like meet, record an episode, get it out, 4 weeks from then, and if we had vacations, we'd plan for it. And that's all to say that I think it also really benefits the story. It benefits the story to think about this as something people will listen to and like what will keep their interest, what will keep them excited, what was a good cliffhanger to end on, where should we, when we did our first live show, like how can we, plan to bring these characters and experiences to life in front of people and use the fact that we have a visual. Brandon being so talented with music means that we can get at what, hopefully, both of you felt, enraptured by in your teen years playing these games, of like that in-person magic of like feeling the story and feeling the stakes. We don't get that in-person synchronous experience with our audience. So from the jump, Eric's descriptions and Brandon's music and editing the episodes together, panning character voices so characters are in different ears of your headphones, all of that, none of which was my idea, by the way, that we've done since day one, help kind of immerse and recreate that experience, where for me the biggest compliments we get are, that this gave people the confidence and experience and enthusiasm to walk into a game store, to start their own campaign, to feel, literate enough to like ask questions and go deeper into TTRPGs of all kinds. But secondly, that it feels like this is their home campaign, that they're in the campaign with us, and that they have, memories that they're along the journey with us. Because that's for me kind of the biggest goal.
I mean, I love that. And I will say one of the things that I appreciate about AP as it's come up is that it does open up the gates for a lot more people to come in and start playing. Even just going to like local game stores and things like that. Like we have Last Place on Earth near where my partner Jen and I live. We go in there. There's new people coming in and playing D&D all the time, like first timers, second game, anything like that. And most of the time when you talk to those folks, it's because they've heard an AP that they really liked, and it, like you're saying, gave them the confidence to just be like, okay, I think I can do this.
Yeah, it's such a thing where you need to see someone do it in front of you. And then I guess that's the part where people get mixed up and be like, oh, my game needs to be like this. Where it starts to get a little bit more complicated, and like where does the proscenium arch end, and where does your actual you as a person begin? But yeah, I mean, the thing that's undeniable is that tabletop RPGs have like never been more popular, and I think that ultimately, as bad as all the other stuff is, and as an enemy from Red Dead Redemption 2 can be sent to my house if Hasbro wants to. Like, it's never been more popular, and more people like care and talk about it on a regular basis. And it's
and that makes sense that APs are driving that. I mean, I think the equivalent, like I remember in the 90s, like you'd read the novels.
Yeah.
And then there'd be characters, and you'd be like, oh, I want to be like Drizzt Do'Urden or whatever.
Yeah,
there were these like
Dragonlance.
iconic characters. Yeah. And like it wasn't, but then it wasn't actually like that when you played, or movies. Like we just wanted to recreate like Conan the Barbarian or Alien or whatever, and it wasn't again actually like that when you played. And part of the fun I thought was figuring out like, oh, it's surprisingly almost more fun and more surprising. And because it's not sort of a straight heroic, like I kill the bad guys and that's it. Like there's more interesting social interactions. My little brother can be a jerk and just be like, no, I don't do the quest or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is interesting ways that there's like a productive tension. And I wonder if, that's some of what we're seeing is a lot of players come in because of APs, hit a kind of wall of like, it doesn't sound like Critical Role when I do it.
Yeah.
But then also being like, oh, wait, it's actually super fun in a way that is very hard to describe, and good APs get at, as you're saying, in all these different ways. But it is actually different when it's you and your friends and you're live, like doing that kind of flow state. It's a different part of your brain thinking up jokes and making bad decisions in a fictional universe.
Exactly.
That's not really a question, but yeah. So can you tell us, so for listeners, again, maybe there's like one person out there who don't know Multitudes. Can you just say a little about like what you're doing now beyond Join the Party? Like it's, Multitudes is a network, right? It's not,
we're collective.
It's not
like a network, but slightly different. There's no central ownership or editorial control over the shows that are members. So we really began, and our roots are as a podcast collective, a place where, me and Eric and our colleagues and friends could get together and say, we like podcasting, we kind of know what we're doing, but Eric, can you teach me about using Twitter? Brandon, can you teach me how to edit? I use my love of spreadsheets, and I could bring that to the table. And so all of us trying to help one another grow and treat this as not necessarily even a paying job at first, but just a project we cared about and wanted to take really seriously. And over time, doing that for ourselves, other people started to ask us, wait, can you help me launch a podcast, market a podcast, build a community, get ads for my show? Because nobody was doing it for us, so we learned how to do it ourselves. And so that's the simple version of how we went from starting podcasts, me in 2016, joined the party in 2017, into this being our full-time jobs by early 2019, which was pretty wild. And now Multitude does production, consulting, and ad sales for a number of organizations, publications, and independent creators, and make our own shows as well.
Yeah.
I love a cooperative. I just want to be part of one. So I'll just join. I want to join I'll make glassware, I don't know, just a trade. I just want to be part of a thing. So that's really nice. That's your structure. Yeah, we're getting there. Chris and I are collective.
We're not in the trades, but sometimes I wish I had.
It's just two of us.
I was going to ask y'all as the old heads of AP podcasting, as you position yourselves as the old heads, what are some changes? What are some trends that you've seen over the last 7 years as AP has grown more popular? Things just can you give us kind of an overview of the last decade of AP, a good history of it for us?
Yeah, that's oh god, I have to unleash my power,
up your sleeves,
right? Yeah. I mean, it's definitely kicked off. Again, it's more about what's visual here. Again, I'm sure that there are things I'm forgetting. There was Acquisition Incorporated was this penny arcade. I think it might be considered the first actual play podcast, but again, it's so old and confusing that it doesn't even count necessarily for so many people.
Do you remember this? Do you remember the source books for that Wizards actually published for 5e?
Totally. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
None of that made any sense to me. I remember reading through it at the Complete Strategist in Manhattan and just being like, I don't know what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
I had the same experience, I think. I think I literally went to the same store, looked through it, and just put it back. It went into my hand, went past my brain. I was like, I know these people. I don't know what this setting really is, but why doesn't that count? I'm just curious, Eric. You said that wouldn't count as AP just because it doesn't feel modern to the modern podcast aficionado.
Yeah, honestly, that's the only reason why. I know that it was enough that Wizards of the Coast published it and got their hands on it. There was always, since the OGL came up before, which is a very big deal at the beginning of last year. If those of you don't remember, the open gaming license was something that Dungeons and Dragons had, as Hasbro, the giant games corporation, has been trying to squeeze all of the money possible out of Wizards of the Coast and therefore Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons. They wanted to change the open gaming license as they went from 5th edition to open D&D, where basically they're turning Dungeons and Dragons into a games as service, which is going to be super cool and going to be really great for everyone who likes that game.
Yeah, how instead of buying a book and just being able to reference it forever because you pay $30 one time for a book, what if instead you have to pay rent every month to the corporate giant that bought the estate of the people that published the book that you like? Is that better?
It's better. It's good.
That sounds awesome.
I love that.
It sounds like my Adobe subscription, which I also love and have no quibbles with whatsoever.
Something about me, Chris, is I love rent and paying it.
And you know who also loves that? The board members of Hasbro, who came from EA and Zynga, the captains of microtransactions.
Yeah,
and landlords are famously good at fixing things, so definitely they'll update all the rules and keep them in a way that works and is fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I trust landlords a lot.
I forgot about the Zynga thing. I forgot that there's a
They're just they're hiring all these video game people for Hasbro.
Xbox,
yeah, exactly. So the open gaming license was something so that there was all the way from the beginning of Dungeons and Dragons, people were allowed to make third-party content and sell it because making hacks of games is good for the breadth and community of. Actually, can I check with wife? Wife, is that good? Wife, is that a good thing for games?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Yeah, how do I know? I mean, I'm not just because I'm a social scientist and a game designer. I'm not a social scientist of games, confusingly. So I actually don't know anything about the games market other than having published a minor a science fiction story generator, so I think this whole question of the open gaming license and what'll happen, it's really interesting because so many people are playing And it feels like hopefully that momentum keeps going regardless of what Hasbro does. But everyone is still playing essentially D&D. And every metric I have seen still points at that. So that it doesn't feel like if you're in the indieverse and you're like officially over D&D or whatever, I've been fully like indie RPG pilled. It's like it doesn't matter. It's just 99% of people are still playing 5e. They're probably going to play 6e, 1 D&D, whatever they call it. 99% of the money you pay D&D, whatever version, $30 a month D&D.
I don't know, but I really think there's going to be a big fracturing. The reason,
God, I hope so.
I really do.
So.
I think that it's just going to be because 5th edition was the default. Again, like the whole point that I'm trying to say is that the open gaming license, there's a little thing inside of it that allows actual plays to exist, where it's like if we don't like what you're doing, we can tell you to stop. There's like a little thing inside of the open gaming license because it's actually in terms of like advertising in something. It's about all of the open gaming license is all about if Wizards allows you to make money off of doing something Dungeons and Dragons related. So I think that there's going to be this fracturing because 5th edition, as I said, Griffin McElroy got the rules early. So it's like that was set as the baseline. Acquisitions Incorporated had some sort of relationship with Wizards of the Coast before, and I think they were playing like 3.5 or 4th edition before, so that's why I just don't count it, because it almost feels like it got rolled up into it, and it wasn't part of the modern version of it that got like burst onto the scene as 5th edition was, as like Lauren Polanco at 20-Sided Store once described it to me as like the tree got as big as it could get, and then someone cut it down and turned it into a canoe. And I'm like, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. So yeah, that's where I start the Adventure Zone, and how big it got with the balance arc is where I feel like it actual play started, and then everything started to grow. I don't know if you knew, but like since I was tracking this, Not Another D&D podcast, NADPOD, the massive show that got started in 2018. So the genre of it being too big and there being too many started in 2018. That's all the way back from where we started it. Which
that's like a thing though in all media, is like as soon as there were punks, there were people being like, punk is dead.
Yeah.
As soon as there was hip hop, there were records where it's like you're like literally like year 2, there was a guy who's like, this guy is not hip hop. Yeah. And there's only like 4 guys who are hip hop. So it's like, well, shit, 1/4 of it, we lost 1/4 of the genre. But I think that's what's interesting is like to tie that to actual popularity, because people back when Chris and I were buying boxes with lots of little letter sized staple bound, booklets saying that about different games and stuff, but it didn't really matter. And now AP and whatever else, Magic, and movies have made D&D like popular and big. So maybe it matters more sort of if there is a shift. And to your point, I think it would be awesome if there were even just a partial fracture. So even if like 5% of the D&D heads kept playing, but were more intentional about just the fact there are other games, which also, just as a plug, and you can correct me if I'm wrong as the experts, but they work very well for actual play. Like there's no reason you a priori need to play D&D to do actual play of TTRPGs.
Yeah.
Even with the swords and the dragons and the whatnot. But again, maybe you have a perspective.
Here's my game crit about this, which I think is important as we're kind of traveling through. Just to finish up the timeline, I think the pandemic really was important because all digital media grew in a very specific way, and people invested a ton of money in those specific things. Now, did corporate people think that money was always going to be there forever and didn't make any sort of hedging their bets? Yes, they did. But also, like, the podcasting, video, Twitch and YouTube blew up, and of course people wanted to start playing digitally, and recording remotely and playing remotely was more accepted. And then I think that like Dimension 20, I think, was a watershed moment alongside the power of Critical Role, how much energy they got behind it, because then it's like, oh, if you can put money behind this and then make business success behind it, as Dimension 20 became the backbone of Dropout, which is probably the best streaming service that exists at the moment. Mm-hmm. And Critical Role got the most Twitch. So remember that Twitch leak that happened a few years ago? Like it is proven that they got the most subs.
Before that, the largest Kickstarter, I think.
Yes, and the Amazon, and then of course the whole Amazon cartoon, I think is related to that, and how that went through Kickstarter and got bought by Amazon. So like I think that now we're in this period where it's like APs are big money, especially now that Dimension 20 is performing a mess in Square Garden. Every YouTube channel has a secondary YouTube channel where they play Dungeons and Dragons to deepen their parasocial relationships with their audience. So it's almost like part of a media strategy at this point. And I think that that's where we are, and we're seeing where that takes us, as of course when money floods the the artistic zone, everything's good and there's never any problems.
No, never any infighting.
No.
And
No discourse. There's never discourse.
None of discourse. And I'm sure this next statement will not set off any discourse as well, which is I think that people are a lot more willing as APs have evolved over the last 7-8 years to ask how forms should follow a function, to use other game systems to tell a story, or to even ask at their home table, okay, let's play a TTRPG. What's the vibe? And then let's play the game based off of that versus trying to, fit into something where they think, no, this is how you play a TTRPG, or this is how you play Dungeons and Dragons, and it must be very, dry and battle focused and violent and all those kinds of stuff. Something Eric's done from day one, and something I think people do a lot more readily now in APs, is not just play other games, be a lot less orthodox about needing to stay within exact lines of no, this is a D&D podcast, this one's 3.5, this one is only Monster Hearts, this one is only Pathfinder, whatever it might be.
Yeah, to answer the thing that you were starting with is from being a games person and not going actual play backwards, is that there are other games out there, but if you don't, then you try to hack D&D, which is fairly flexible to do whatever the fuck you want, especially if you are kind of ignoring most of the rules and using it as a structure because no one wants to hear your long form improv podcast. So it's when you throw out a lot of the rules, you can make it do whatever you want. And I love other games other than Dungeons & Dragons because form follows function. When you play Masks, you are playing Teen Titans. When you are playing Monster of the Week, you are playing X-Files. And I think that is like I said about the simulacrum of the thing. When you are making an actual play, you're making a TV show of the game you're doing. And then what is it? So then we're talking about is there a game out there to do exactly the thing I want? And then is my audience, are my players, the person running the game, and the audience going to get on board and learn it with me when I can kind of just mush a Dungeons and Dragons with 50% of the rules ignored? Can I just kind of mush it into what I want it to be? I'm not saying that's good or bad. I just think it's when we're talking about the orthodoxy of it.
I think that always happens, though, to your point, because it's funny you describe Monster of the Week as X-Files, because I think X-Files was my favorite show, but I think Monster of the Week is a little bit too nice and oriented around kind of kid stuff. And I feel I would love to, but so instantly I was thinking if I was running a Monster of the Week campaign, I would try to make it more about agency, alphabet agency level shitbaggery, but that might require actually hacking. So I think it's and it's funny, Chris and I have said many times in the show, it's we've literally never run anything as written, just straight. It's impossible. Because 2 pages in, especially if it's good, it's actually the more that it has good ideas, the more your brain gets going and you start doing your own thing. So I think it's funny. I agree with you that you're always doing something else. You're I'm doing Conan, I'm doing X-Files, I'm doing whatever, Black Panther. But I also think part of that is it's a little bit surprising even to yourself what kind of comes to mind, and that's part of the fun. But I totally take your point, because we all sort of know D&D, it's the sort of common language. It's really easy to hack, and it's easy for the audience to grok what you're hacking. And so that makes sense that that's kind of an established baseline. Again, less intimidating, brings in a bigger audience. That's cool.
And that's why I think it's going to fracture when 5th edition is not the be all end all, because it's what are we going to, because let's lay out what one D&D is going to be. It is an Adobe style subscription. And is everyone going to do that subscription? Am I going to pay D&D Beyond for this amount of money for this thing? I'm not going to learn one D&D rules, but it's
no, hell no.
It's almost impossible to hack because they're moving even away from my DM. They explicitly say this. They're actually trying to do this. This is in the quarterly reports from Hasbro. They do not like that only one person in a 5-person party, the DM and their 4 players, they do not like that only one person buys the books. They hate that. And they're literally trying to monetize more people. So it's not even going to be that way where you can just share the rules with someone. Also, on top of this, this whole thing happened with Baldur's Gate 3, how it's yes, Baldur's Gate 3 is an incredible game. I never wanted to touch it because I'm deeply uninterested with the Forgotten Realms and playing that kind of stuff and playing in that world. I think Illithids are stupid. I think the Drow are racist. I'm so uninterested in a game that's mostly about human slavery in the 3rd act. That's a true thing about Baldur's Gate 3. You can't thirst your way into that, not even a little bit.
Haven't played it, didn't know that. I just thought it was about fucking bears, but
and that's what Hasbro wants you to think.
That's what the internet wants you to think.
They got me.
But Larian, incredible game studio, and that's how they turned it out. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons from Baldur's Gate 3. There's a ton of articles about it from Polygon where people said that, but then we're losing the lingua franca. There's no way for people to learn the game because I think that Hasbro, the stewards of D&D, are more interested in squeezing the IP fruit and getting all the juice out than anyone playing their actual game. Going all the way back to something you said, Wythe, getting into D&D through the Forgotten Realms and the Dragonlance novels and through Drizzt, that's the IP of the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be fun, and getting people in should be fun, and that's what you're saying, which I've heard from other people who know much more about video games than I do. I also haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 because I'm an old man who reads books, so I just haven't played it. But is that they made this really great product, and then instantly we're like, okay, we're not supporting. So it's like they have the capacity. They obviously hire brilliant people and could just make fun products, but moving to an Adobe subscription model, that's kind of a problem. Et cetera, et cetera. This dovetails a little bit with a question I'm really curious about, which is VTT, which generally requires in the non-free model a subscription. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I see two things, again, kind of from afar. We've participated in both, but as sort of outsiders. But there's actual play where it's very much audio driven and you're not looking at things and I can listen while doing the dishes. And then there's VTT and the expectation that players want to see stuff. Mm-hmm. And they'll some players will say that they can't imagine certain scenarios without seeing it. Mm-hmm. Both of which are different from the traditional, if you grew up with people, teens around a table arguing about no, that's not how big an orc is. They're bigger, it's smaller. There's a level of you're co-imagining, but you're all doing it very differently and you're all ADD teens and it's just bad.
Yeah, the way it should be.
So
exactly.
I agree. I think the podcast. I wonder more like that. Yeah.
How do you interact specifically with VTTs, but maybe more generally with that there's this sort of weird, I feel like it's both getting more visual and less visual as a hobby. I don't know. Maybe that's just a provocation.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. I think the one thing I can say about VTT is that it only weirds me out because it was almost the back door how Hasbro got this whole thing started. This company called D&D Beyond, which was a different company, got started and then got licensed by D&D to be a part and be their VTT solution. And then now it's become the backbone of this Adobe-ification of Dungeons and Dragons. So that it's just kind of interesting how someone's like, oh, you need visuals? We can give you visuals. And what if we kept your character sheets and all of your rules online? Here you go. Now you just have to pay $8 forever. If you want to see your best friends who you use to imagine, if your imagination friends.
It's every, software as a service model where they make you dependent on the tool and then keep jacking up the price for you to keep using the tool. Yeah. So for that reason, I'm deeply suspicious of it as a policy decision of Hasbro's. At the same time, I didn't fully understand how initiative worked until I watched Dimension 20, because at the heart of it, D&D began as a battle game. And so the fundamental spatial relations, even somebody as talented as GMing as the best GM in podcasting, Eric, can only help me understand the Z-axis of my monk's movement speed, in space. Yeah. And so seeing the very talented set designer at Dimension 20 making those sets and seeing movement and seeing reactions and moving through hostile space, et cetera, all of that was super helpful. Also, as a podcaster, getting fan art is the most legitimating thing that's ever happened in my career, and I've got lots of fun accolades. So visuals help, and visuals are great. I think if we had an incredibly talented artist on our team, maybe we would have leaned into that more early on. But for podcasting specifically, the realm of I can go, about my day. Eric's the first person I ever heard who described this, but I can have people in my ears as I am on the bus, as I'm doing the dishes, as I'm walking the dog, as I'm taking care of my kid, as I'm, doing at the gym. And I can put in my own imagination, my own setting, my own characters. There is an element to that, just like, I'm the kid growing up reading books only and not talking to people. It's the same reason why reading those books as a kid, stood up so strongly in my imagination. And seeing people, cosplay, draw fan art, do self-inserts of our characters is incredible. And to me, creates a stronger bond and shared imagination scape than anything with a visual could.
Yeah, I mean, it's related to like how the fact that we are podcast producers and not video podcast producers or YouTubers or streamers. Like, it's just our core medium, and we like not having visuals. Honestly, is where it comes from.
And they're expensive if you're not Chris and an artist.
Yeah, well, I pay with my time. It's really curious. I think it's really interesting, Amanda, that you would bring up, the fact that D&D it started as a war game. You are correct. It started as chainmail and then eventually morphed into what we know as first edition D&D.
Oh, you listen to me when I speak. Thank you.
Of course I do. Sometimes Eric will threaten to be like, okay, do you want to calculate your carrying capacity? And I'm like, not in this game, but kind of ultimately.
You should try it at some point, but not all the time. But I mean, it's interesting. I think that there is a rub there with podcasting and with, audio media, in that like it was originally created to have miniatures on a table to use a measuring stick, or now the grid, which is, again, 1-inch grid. It's the same as using a ruler for movement. But I love that there are newer games that are coming out in the era post Dimension 20, post 2020 kind of boom, where, like you're saying, form follows function, right? Like, it's made a little bit more for audio. And in my mind, that makes it a little bit more for theater of the mind, which is how I always prefer to play my games.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that PBTA games are explicitly made for that, because it's like the moves are only when you're doing something like super extra. Like, I think about Masks all the time, how you're allowed to just do regular fighting of bad guys, but only once you like use your superpowers a lot or you're pushing yourself, then new moves actually come into play. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of PBTA games are exactly like that.
Yeah, it presumes competency, and it kind of assumes, to me, in a way that, again, not having been around for it, early D&D, that is ultimately adversarial, I think, in player against GM, or player character against baddie, that all those things you can be a little more flexible with, and you can just collaborate toward the project of fun, which in many ways, like making a podcast gave us an excuse to see it that way, where, when we sat down and Eric said, okay, like, what are you interested in? Like, what do you want to do as I'm writing the campaign? Like, tell me what your thoughts are. Is not a way that that some GMs, maybe most GMs, certainly I think pre-actual play, may have approached their game. I've certainly heard lots of horror stories where that wasn't the case. And so the idea of having session zero, having, audience research, right? Thinking about what's out there and what do I want to do instead? Or what are these big questions that are in my mind? What would interest me and therefore my audience? Having an audience there in the way that, like, I don't know, having company over makes you like more polite. Having the audience in the room made us a little more aware of like, what would make this worth all the effort and time? Because it didn't make money for a long time, what makes it worth it? And so I really like that, the first game I ever GM'd was the goats at we call it Goat Party. What's the actual name?
It was a Goat Crashers. It was a
Crashers.
one-pager by Grant Howitt.
Like, incredible. I want to be a cheeky little goat, crash at a party. Like, this is so much fun. Exactly. And I love that it's just the one page that I can print out or look at on my phone and have a couple of D6s, and like, that's all I need. And at the same time, I love that we can get into set pieces where, Eric has designed this entire world that Join the Party's current campaign is set in, filled with plant and bug people. That would be extraordinarily expensive to do it as a living, or difficult to do with visuals, but we can make the game exactly what it is that we want it to be. And that's, I think, something that theater of the mind, podcasting in particular, opens up for us.
Yeah.
Well, you did have some pretty good visuals for that
we
arc
did.
on Join the Party. Pretty talented.
Chris did such a good job drawing them. The best part about commissioning artists, it's like making fan art for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really fun. I loved it.
You did such a good job.
Yeah, that's a reason to do books, is you can hire dope artists to like and then you write some insane description and they do a really good job, and you're like, wow, that's way cooler than what I had in my head.
Just to get
if they're Chris,
to get into this, like, one more step backwards, is like, we're podcast people, right? Is like, I like podcasts because there's no algorithm anywhere, and there's no giant corporation putting the thumb on the scale. Hi, Jeff Bezos, I can see you in Twitch land. So it's just like not needing to conform to a meta, not needing to conform to, or chase, I would say, not even to conform or chase a meta, and not needing to conform or chase an algo has certainly been helpful. And then we kind of just like, we're playing pretend in the classic way that we love playing pretend, because it's a podcast thing. For the people who do VTT and do streams, God willing, it also feels like a totally different sphere. We don't really interact with those people. It's like we interact with podcasters more than we interact with like the general Dungeons and Dragons influencer sphere, which actually I feel like stays more on the video side because they're mostly streamers and TikTokers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're getting close to 8, but before we wrap, I did want to ask you, we talked a little bit about one-page RPGs earlier. I believe that somebody else has written a one-page RPG that's on this stream. Can you tell us about?
Mayhaps several.
Oh, I've written a bunch of games and stuff. I actually do like writing games.
We have to talk about that.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
are they available on the internet? Are they available in a book? Do you want to talk about the writing process? I didn't know this.
Oh, that's me. Yeah, no, I do game design. I mean, it actually came out of a because again, I didn't know that this was a thing that people did until later. But you know, like I ended up writing some modules and some like guides and settings for stuff that came out of out of Join the Party. Like I did a setting for our campaign 2. I made a whole like setting book and a whole module and a whole thing for like making superheroes work in your D&D book, and in your D&D game, and I made a bunch of subclasses and stuff like that. I've also written a game. Clear Eyes Full Hearts is a game I've made with Misha Stanton, which is, I love GM-less games. I really do. I think that they're so interesting. I kind of love it when games run themselves. I started in board games. I love board games. So it's like having the game run itself in a way where like the players don't have anything to do with it is very much in my blood. So Clear Eyes Full Hearts was a GM-less game that I wrote with Misha Stanton, which is about like a season of Friday Night Lights or of a sports anime, and just like going through and doing teen stuff. And you know, I'm always writing games. I'm writing games as a function to play a one-pager and do one-pager type stuff, like an expression of a game only over one episode. And I kind of express it through actual play stuff. Like I write games for the show all the time.
Eric went on a walk last week, and at like 5:00, and by like 6:15 or something, I was like, oh hey, I'm gonna start dinner, or I'm getting dinner takeout. I don't remember. And then he was like, oh sorry, yeah, I sat down in the park and then I wrote a one-page RPG, and I was like, oh yeah, no, of course.
It was longer than one pagers. It came out to like 5.
Yeah,
it came out to 5.
Yeah.
In this campaign, I made a ship combat. Kind of like mini tabletop RPG based on rock paper scissors to make it easier for us to do like ship to ship pirate combat. And now like we're in an upcoming episode, we're gonna do like a sit down of a government was it like a government meeting?
Caucus, yeah,
kind of like a caucus or a conclave. And I'm like, we should have some rules for this. We should have some mechanics for this. And then I just kind of wrote a game for it. It's really fun. I'm very excited to play it. We're gonna play it on Friday. But yeah, I mean, I just love doing this stuff. I didn't realize it at the time, but like, breaking pieces off from the spirit of PBTA, how I actually love that style of fight much more than Initiative. I think Initiative's stupid. The number of Blades in the Dark pieces I've stolen, and I've never actually played a game of Blades in the Dark, is countless.
Yeah.
And that's everybody. That's everybody.
Right?
It's a really great book that isn't the most fun game, and we'll just one day we'll have
literally everyone we've talked to
Harper on.
Good to know.
Got a lot of good ideas. They don't all go together. That's fine.
The flashback mechanic, incredible. The pie, incredible.
The pie. Yeah.
Am I ever going to
Great.
play a game? Absolutely not. I feel that way about Beam Saber too. I'm like, I'd love to play, but it's like, Jesus is way too crunchy.
But you've done that from the beginning, and I think this is something too that the rest of AP is following in yours and perhaps a few others' footsteps, in saying like, what's more interesting for me as a person and maybe a narrative experience than like killing a dragon dead is I don't know, having any kind of set piece where the goal is not kill the monster dead or kill the enemy dead. What is it like when your opponents have their own conflicting aims and goals? What is it like when stuff is happening off screen without you? And all of those things, down to and including like eliminating race essentialism from D&D before they very begrudgingly said, okay, I guess we'll say species before we started our 3rd season. You do it because you don't find what you're looking for, and so you make the tools. And I think that's an incredible impulse and something that more and more folks are feeling free to do in AP. And I think gaming as a whole is better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You make the tools of the production of your own fun.
Yeah.
and you may or may not use certain kind of computers, AI, and whatnot. You may or may not have friends in real life. No, I think that's important to say. Like, and you may play with people you don't even know across the world, but it's super fun, and I'm glad people are discovering the hobby, even if whether they're looking at VTT or they're primarily doing theater of the mind or whatever they're doing. I think it's super fun. It is 8. Do you want to keep talking?
I'm around. I'm chilling.
We're all here. We're all in real time.
If y'all want to, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like,
Chris, did you have? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh no, I just wanted to say that, like, yeah, I at this point I'm considering myself a game designer. I really am, and I know that it's a little bit more of like an uphill battle now that the game design is kind of formulated itself and formalized itself. But I felt really great putting out Clear Eyes Full Hearts. It was just this fun thing that, like, Misha suggested, oh, what if you could play like a season of Friday Night Lights? And I'm like, okay, let me write that. And I just did it. And it was nice and fun. There's another GM-less game that I'm really working on that I really want to come out like more formally. I'm like, I want this to be in game stores. But like the fact that I just kind of like popped this game out that we're going to run and join the party, it's like I do it as an extension of the actual play. And being able to sell it like just in our merch store and whatever, and just having that stuff out there is wonderful. But I'm really excited to kind of like, dive into it. And so that everyone can just like compare it to Wander Home and then ignore it and not pay $15 for it.
No, that's what we're all aiming for. It's really hit the nail on the head. No, but that's really interesting. I think the impulse to be a game designer, to work with a guy named Logan Dean, who's an industry veteran who often, I think for some reason, multiple times I've seen him tweet this, is you can just make games. No one can stop you.
Yeah.
So I think that, which is, it's a little like Zen Koan I sometimes see in the timeline. He always sort of tweets these like one lines that are sort of profound without punctuation. And, that to me is very inspiring, because it is like, yeah, right. Like, I make these games because they're fun. People like playing them whom I know. And if someone gives me money for them, huzzah, like, wasn't expecting that to start. Now, of course, it's a little different. And that's where my last kind of question was just about the, if you'll get into it. And you could say, no, our books are locked up. But, we live in this, at least, here we live in the heart of Empire, and this sort of extremely expensive market.
I don't think any of us live in Los Angeles. I don't know what you're talking about.
Los Angeles is the boonies comparatively. How do you make it work? How did you go? So we talked, we kind of got up to the present in a lot of ways, and we're talking about game design, which I think is part of this. Maybe more for me and Chris, but sounds like for you as well. How do you go about how much of a struggle was it? Do you have any tips? I mean, again, it's a super broad question. I don't mean to pry, like, take it how you want it, but how do you make the business side of Multitude, function?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Honestly, I like that. I like doing that much more than trying to get more downloads for our actual play. At this point,
we're not full-time podcasters. Like, Eric and I spend probably 2/3 of our week running the podcast collective and production company that is Multitude, and a third-ish, more for Eric than for me, of our week, like, making cool shit.
Yeah.
It's an important distinction.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at this point, it's like trying to like follow the social media algorithms and like make video content and make clips and that stuff, and like the marketing surrounding the podcasting honestly feels more tiring to me than like doing consulting and producing shows for other people and the stuff that we have to do. And like the thing that I've been telling myself the most this year is that there are many different forms of validation. I need validation because I'm in this business, right? It's like I came to this thing and I want to make stuff for people to consume and hopefully tell me that they like it, right? But there's only so many things. There are so many different ways that you can feel good about yourself. I think that in how bad our economy is at the moment, there is becoming even more of a premium on social media likes and like followers, right? Like it almost matters more that you have 100,000 followers on TikTok than like how you make then maybe you would have a full-time job doing that TikTok. And at this point, I'm like, I would rather have a full-time job doing art. And that's and doing something on where I can, run my own thing and hopefully hold on to as many of my own values as possible. And I think that our idea of like, what does it mean to be successful is just so absolutely out of whack. I spend a lot of time talking about this to podcasters because like podcasts seem to be the plaything of people who already have massive audiences. And this is just like another thing that you have to do. It's like, if you're an influencer with a ton of followers, now you have a podcast to like monetize it or formalize it or something, but it's like podcasting can be the thing, or anything can be the thing. I say this all the time. It's like, think about a Patreon that has 1,000 patrons. It's a lot. It is certainly a lot, and more than anyone has ever, and more than like most people ever have. But it's not insane. It's entirely possible. It's very, very possible for someone to get 1,000 patrons. And let's say that each one of those patrons gives $5. That's $5,000 times 12. That's $60,000.
Better living than most people in the US.
And then turning that into whatever artistic thing you're doing, or being that a part of your working life, that's really great. Like, imagine making $60,000 doing your creative job, or the job you like, as your full-time job. I think that would be really tight and cool. And I think that that's like ultimately what my goal is, and what I just kind of keep my eye on the prize. It's like, I like every week during our Monday meeting, when Amanda and Brandon meet, we always say, when we review like a good thing that happened to us the week before, we're like, and we didn't get laid off this week. Because goddamn the number of times that working in media, I've almost got laid off, or I've gotten fired, or like one of our terrible bosses have said the worst thing that's ever said to another person, and that's just
great.
And that's just fucking Wednesday. Like, one time, one of my bosses thanked me for taking down a giant or made me thank him for taking down a giant photo of Chris Hardwick that was in our office
during his
during the part where he was,
yeah.
exactly. And like, he wanted praise for it, even though he was like 5 bosses up for me, and made so much more money from me. And I'm like, no. And because he was so huffy about it, and I asked him to do it many, many times. It was only when I taped a piece of paper over the picture and it looked bad that he actually started doing it. So it's like, the psychic damage we take from jobs that we hate, I think it might be enough of different parts of validation where like I can feel a little bit whole from making a little bit of money, having a mildly successful show, and then this business that we do, especially when things are becoming even more precarious, and also supporting people who we think are great, like this show, playing games by people who are incredibly well made, playing games by people who we like and have really interesting stuff, which I learned from friends at the table. And like Austin Walker just got laid off from his video game job that he didn't even get. He worked there for like 1,000 days and didn't show anything that he ever did.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
It's heartbreaking, but also we work with Defector, we work with Aftermath, supporting these subscription-based websites,
Day One Subscriber to Rascal, Hellgate, all these folks. That's the kind of media ecosystem we want to see and evolve in. And I think, like all of them, we have known from the very beginning how strong and incredible it is that people would make room in their budgets each month to support us. So to Eric's point, those 1,000 people giving you $5 a month, it really fucking matters. And so the real answer to your question is every podcast in the Multitude Collective makes money from Patreon. They make money from ads. They make money from merch or speaking or whatever consulting other things that they might do. And we're the same way, where Eric and I each make money from Join the Party. As to our collaborators, we split that all evenly. And then we also do things like ad sales for others, like production for others, helping companies learn how to do podcasts better, teaching courses in colleges on podcasting, and all these little rivers of money, right? Like the 4 or 5 or 6 of them, none of them on their own would be enough, but together it is enough. And it's enough for us to do what we want to do to hit our goals, which is make a modest living for ourselves in media and employ our friends and people who are really talented and spend money on them, give outs and money and audience their way, to collaborate with them, to work with them, and put every extra dollar that we make into something else that we want to do. We just got back from a 7-city live show tour for Join the Party and Spears. We were prepared for it not to make money. It did, which was incredible.
Yeah.
But
congratulations.
Thank you. We can spend, a week and a half of our working lives, driving from Minneapolis to Chicago because it's amazing. And 100 people will find childcare and get out of work early to come to a place and see us perform.
I outran a Blizzard in a Chrysler Pacifica. I really did. It was crazy.
It was amazing.
That is no small
That's
feat.
fodder for RPGs. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I want to make a 1-page RPG about people in a minivan while outrunning a deadly, spooky, weird, this is supernatural blizzard. That could be pretty fun.
I mean, whenever you are facing a blizzard or a tornado or any hurricane, it is spooky. It feels supernatural, whether or not it is. So yeah, you've got it.
No, it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I love that answer, and I love that you're highlighting sort of decentralized networks and real connections with real people, and making stuff. So if we go back to like the critique of capitalism in the 19th century, it's like the stuff that's getting made isn't serving a purpose. The way like it's the problem of the mismatch of like markets, social production, like people doing things, and then like this abstraction of like capital, and I feel like partially like we're using these tools to just try to reforge, really I think it personally, at least out of sort of selfishness, like stuff I like doing, but reforging some real connections and making stuff I think people will actually like, and they'll literally tell me like I liked that, I didn't like that, it's sort of more reaffirming. Whereas like working, like if my day job, I'm working at ad agency or a university, it's like just all nonsense, and they just send me a check, and it's all divorced. Like it's very hard, even if I'm trying really hard to like interact with people in a more genuine, authentic way. So I feel like Multitude is showing a cool model that probably other people are doing, but I know you've been doing it since games started in 2016. Sorry, Chris.
I was going to say to your point, I think actually it's not selfish to do this. It is that under capitalism, we all feel alienated from our labor. We want to find ways to not feel alienated from our labor. This is a way that we can do it. And I think, again, the model that y'all are doing is beautiful. It's something that I think we're aspiring to in a lot of ways. But yeah, having a cooperative where we can actually support the work that we want to do that's going to make us feel human as opposed to just cogs.
No, exactly. And like, we're such business people that we like doing it for ourselves. I'm not saying that people should not have full-time jobs, but then it's like, if you are the kind of person who can go to your full-time job and turn off your brain for an extended period of time and then just like do your job and then like spend all of your energy doing all the cool shit you do off thing, do it. This is just how thank you for saying that, Chris. I think that really put the words that I needed. Is like, this is how I need to live. I cannot be as alienated as I felt from my labor in the past to it. And it just so happens that Amanda and I like doing the dirty work and like filling out spreadsheets enough that it's actually come together. I think that especially in this place, because we are in media, and this, I did say I was going to be a lawful heel on this. It's like, since we work in media and in games, I feel like there's a lot of like, we just said this, we called it rose washing, because like the democratic socialists have the roses. It's almost like washing your capitalist, your hyper capitalist entree in media in the language of liberalism, and then saying, oh no, but we're good guys, but of course you're hoping that no one looks close enough to see what you're actually doing only enriches 1, 2, or 3 people. I can think of so many people in podcasting and games and actual play, especially as actual play is getting pulled in the direction of LA and needing the affirmation of traditional media, and therefore the power structures of traditional media allowing the subjugation of the many on behalf of the few. That's kind of filtering into a lot of that we do. So we're trying to put our money where our mouth is in more ways than one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love that. And I love, so you're talking about the actual, because there's 2 levels. There's a diegetic level, of course, because it's games, but there's also what you're talking about is the human, like, can we have worker cooperatives? Can we help each other out? Can we have cooperatives that help other cooperatives, which is the whole freaking model of like Mondragon and all of the collectives in the Bronx, the Black diasporic, cooperatives that have really taken off through this idea that like, you're not competing. You're competing with whatever Nabisco, right? Like if you're a small bakery, you're not competing with the other small bakery. And I think that's true of indie RPGs. We're competing with Hasbro, we're competing with video games, we're competing with, I don't know, Fox, you know what I mean? Like we're not competing with each other. And I also think diegetically, there's something to games about this, where you have a lot of games that are embracing like a kind of rad lib language of identity, but not really doing like social revolution. It's always about individual Picaros, individual heroes, like doing a good, killing a bad guy who's just 100%, that dragon was Hitler, that goblin also Hitler, you
can have whatever pronouns you want as you go and like conquer people that we're not going to talk about their humanity in like the new lands. Exactly. Like so many examples.
The big bad is capitalism. It's always capitalism now.
How do non-binary murder hobos kill goblins?
Real.
Yeah. They slash them.
Nice. I didn't even
Did you just come up
with that dad joke? That's so good,
That's
Chris.
really good. That's really good.
Chris, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to put that in the intro to the podcast now. I think.
Show notes.
That's really
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we can top that. I mean, Eric and Amanda, you might be able to, but I think Chris and
We're
I now
tapping
have
out.
to see ourselves out. That was too
Tapping out,
good.
yeah.
That was just too good.
It's confusing because again, we're talking about the intersection of so many things, like of media, of games, and then of media about games in the middle, and how so many people are using that as leverage to like do one thing or another. You know, I can think of a bunch of examples. I think a really good example is like there was this podcast network that got said it was turning into a worker cooperative, but really it was kind of just a smokescreen for the guy who owned it to sell it and it to be come out as the nicest way possible. And it's like, it's weird. It's just really weird. I think we see this a lot from podcasting because a lot of the executives in podcasting are either coming from TV or they're coming from public media. And it's like, you know, the only person who is more brain dead about like capitalism than like a television executive is someone who's lived in nonprofit their entire lives.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's a lot of stuff of people trying to make podcasting into what you think it is or what you want it to be, and it's either totally ineffective or it's actually only empowering the many when it's only empowering the few, but you're saying it's empowering the many, and it's just absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with podcasting that I've been banging this drum a lot lately, but I think that we're doing over here in Multitude is like, we're doing a business. We are extremely taking ourselves seriously. And if you don't take yourself seriously, how are we supposed to stand hand in hand and make sure we all get what we deserve? How do we all get our piece of the pie and steal it from everyone else? Like, here's the thing. Spotify, if Spotify was good at their job, if they used like, you know, the whole Damix thing that they've been doing, if they had any sense or wanted to take the thing that they could do in music and apply it to podcasting, they would have everyone out of a job. But they can't and they won't because they care more about owning everyone's audio lunch than they are about doing a good job. And thank God, because they're terrible at it. But it's like, you know, if we don't take ourselves seriously, how are we supposed to grab the money on the table? And how are we supposed to help others who have to help grab the money on the table? You know, even if we're doing this silly little digital online thing, I'm not waiting until the better thing happens. I'm doing the best job that I can, because you can actually make a living, a good life in this terrible economy we have. We can make a good life with this, doing the thing that I want to do, if we actually try and do a good job.
And it's better. Like, you know, much of our origin story is because the establishment wouldn't have us, and Eric applied to, you know, 50 jobs at BuzzFeed, and I applied to so many at NPR and other places, but we either couldn't afford to work for free or weren't taken because our resumes, you know, had job experience that wasn't simply in that same ecosystem.
And we weren't like 21.
We were, like 20 and in college and could, you know, intern at BuzzFeed for free, and realized as adults what it is that we wanted to do. And you know what? It's better. Like the place that we were and had to grow and thrive out of force is now, if I could go back, where I would choose to be. Because something that has changed in the last 10 years is people understand that someone has to pay for the shit they love. And either, you know, the creator has to have a day job and do this on the side, or, you know, someone somewhere, advertising, membership, you know, a company has to foot the bill somewhere. We aren't talking about selling out anymore because people are smart and they realize that somebody has to pay for it.
I want to give a specific shout out to listeners and to the general audience out there. I think that, like what I was saying about something that's more valuable than just followers, even though it's a free way that people contribute, and people can still do this. I'm not saying this, but it's like, you know, how it's the follower count on social media cares more. You know, a way that like people who don't like being on Twitter and Instagram and who are not just like on the internet all the time, they vote with their dollars. They buy merch, they buy tickets, they buy stuff, and they support Patreons. And thank God, you people are incredible. Everyone can contribute in the way you can contribute, but no way is better than the other. And I think that the way that, you know, since 2020, I think that people have really understood that they need to spend money on the things that they care about, starting with like small businesses, as we saw, like restaurants really needed help. And I think they started applying it out to the media that they want. And that's why the subscription model for websites has been thriving so much lately. But yeah, like however you want to contribute, if you want to make fan art, if you want to like and follow and share and tell people and be an evangelist for your show, but also if you want to spend money, there are all ways for you to support the artists that you love. And I think that I want to give a shout out to the people who do spend money, who I have this imaginary, it's always an IT person. It's either a librarian or an IT person who makes like $125,000 a year and supports like 50 Patreons. I love you. Like, I know you exist. And you're absolutely incredible.
I think they definitely exist.
They definitely.
I know one person who is that guy for sure. He's out there.
And if we lived if we weren't liberal elites, Chris, then we would definitely know more. You know what I mean?
No, it's true. Like, they're out there. We've never had more tools than we have now to directly connect with them. And building it, whether it is a business or a community or an activist, collection, directly with people who share something, who feel seen and loved and heard, or just like like spending time with you, is amazing and is an incredible way to not feel alienated from your labor. We, in some ways, our job is very ephemeral. We, record on microphones and then press publish on an MP3, and nothing changes around me. But in very real and direct ways, we can see those people on the road. They spend money with us every month. They comment and talk to us and send us fan art and send us sweet emails with photos of their pets, as they're listening together. And that makes me incredibly hopeful about the state of, community-driven media, and of people being able to do things that they know are important, that their audiences know are important, and that folks in the VC-backed digital media disruptor conglomerate can't make a 10x return on, and therefore thinks is irrelevant. We know it's relevant, and we are very slowly, I think, but substantially putting our money and time and effort where our values are.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a mic.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a mic drop. We agree, and we want to support you, and also we don't mind if people support us. Right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Hey, our main thing that we say is get a membership. Get a membership as soon as you can for whatever thing you are. Why would you keep people from allowing to give you money? If they want to give you money, let them give you money. Just do it.
Yeah, Jim from IT
and we do have
has
a
$5
Patreon
to
listeners.
spend. Yeah.
So if you'd like to go to patreon.com/stillfleet.
There you go.
Yes.
Also multitude.
There you go.
Multitude shows. I should look at the list. You did
That's
send
our
the list.
socials. Thank you.
So we'll drop socials. Actually, this is a good time. So we're going to wrap up. But I did want to say one thing that I'm taking away from this on a sort of serious procedural note is we need not everyone has the person who's good at the spreadsheets or wants to do the spreadsheets, and I think that's actually an interesting dilemma. I think I meet a lot of artists, especially artists who are a little wary about professionalization or feel imposter syndrome, those things that tend to happen when you're first working, especially people who haven't worked in media. I think we've all maybe worked in media outside of games, and then games is like a nice, fun, whether it's a longstanding hobby, new hobby, whatever. But if you've not worked in a public way and you're then thinking I want to publish something, but do I have the right to? I think it actually does matter to have some sense of the numbers. Even if you just want to break even, it helps to know what am I spending, even time wise, what am I spending, what relationships am I activating, but certainly at the level of starting a business, it helps to be good at that stuff. So
if I may add, I think that's such an important point, because like Chris was saying earlier, with a little bit tongue in cheek, with the market research about Eric listening to all the D&D pods, there is nothing that qualifies you better to start a business or become a professional in a field than being a conscientious consumer or participant in that field. Getting an MBA alienates you from how actual people deal with and interact with actual businesses. Listening to podcasts makes you an excellent creator of podcasts. Being a critical listener or consumer of a game or player of a game, or thinking what would happen if I tweaked that rule, or why is this rule in place, makes you an excellent game designer. And so there is no amount of institutional rubber stamping that can make you more qualified to do anything as simple as run an Etsy store or have a Patreon or make a side hustle online than following lots of people who do that, listening and taking notes, and then deciding what you would like to see and starting from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's part of the reason why we've had a circuitous route, and Chris, not to speak for you, but I think it's interesting from the perspective of like I was saying, and to frame this conversation, I just don't listen to a lot of AP. I've listened to more in the last year than I ever have. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to kind of come into that as someone who feels I know games. I've been running games for my friends just nonstop since I was 12. But there is this level of games where it is wow, that's bigger than esports, which is bigger than a Matthew McConaughey movie, which is bigger than a sitcom, or I don't know. There's some sort of levels of 10 diagram there. But yeah, it's really interesting to think about the things that alienate you from ordinary people and their perception of the hobby and what makes it fun, and how those are overcome differently in different spaces. Because I think at a con, we're very warm and approachable. But on a podcast, it's a totally different beast, and you don't know who's listening. And as you said, it's sort of asynchronous and all that. So a lot to chew on. we should give Eric, Amanda final thoughts. Chris, do you have last questions, thoughts? Sorry, I've been rambling a bit.
No, you're good. No final thoughts. Just thank you, Eric and Amanda, for joining us. It's been a great conversation, and thanks for your the history lesson as well as the insight into a new and ever shifting industry.
It's crazy. It's really crazy, but it's fun. It's fun. It's fun and good, and ultimately, it's just like people like listening to other people play pretend. And then we just edit it. It's nice. It's fun.
It's really nice. And if you're interested in any of this stuff, if anything we said or talked about interests you, makes you want to learn more, makes you feel seen and welcomed, come check us out. We're at Multitude Shows on social. Multitude.productions is our website, where Eric has authored many, many dozens of free resources, templates, guides to things like making a living online. And he's a great follow at EL_Silvero, his name if he was a Lucha Libre wrestler, online.
And that's Amanda. She's so Mickey. She's incredibly Mickey. She's always been as Mickey as she is.
It's true.
Man, I'm going to miss when Twitter... Listen, Elon Musk can't do anything to kick me off of Twitter. I am like squatting in Twitter until it literally burns down around me. It's like I refuse to evacuate from the home that I've built there. You know what I mean? But like
same.
You're like an old man in a natural disaster. It's
in a flood zone.
Yeah. Or like a skyscraper where it has like a one single dwelling like jutting into the base of the skyscraper. That dude rocks, and you are that dude on Twitter.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm gonna miss it when it fully burns to the ground. But yeah, no, that is good. Yeah, listen to join the party. Yeah, it's
listen
to join the party. We played lots of games. Yeah, it's mostly Dungeons and Dragons for sure, but it's like I got woke about D&D sometime around campaign 2. I didn't realize it in 1 at the time, but like we've also played other games.
Yeah, we did. Episode 1 to campaign 1 is at a gay wedding, which definitely was not in the source.
All right, I meant like in terms of game mechanics, but you're absolutely correct. Yeah, but we've also played other games. We played a bunch of one shots with one pagers, which we loved. We did the one shot derby, which is where we did the character creations of 3 different tabletop RPGs, and then we decided which one we wanted to play. People voted on that, which was really fun. We played an old game, like the oldest game I've ever played, which is, I mean, I usually just play modern era things, so it's like, but it's like this like 2004 game called Inspectors that was like it was like a ghost busting game, but also had like a old school real world road rules sort of like mechanic to it, which was super interesting.
I've never heard of that. I'm kind of into that.
Inspectors, like
really
Spectre, like the Ghost, is very good.
Yeah.
Also, 2005, we got it. Oh my god.
No, I know. Yeah, it's truly incredible, and we have excellent transcripts done by a person, including the sound design. If you are deaf, hard of hearing, and want to check out our shows, that is at jointhepartypod.com. And if you listen to Campaign 3, our current bug and plant person pirate campaign, you can check out Chris's incredible art that we shared on our website and on Instagram.
Oh, you're too kind.
You're too good.
It was really good.
That was incredible.
You're sweet.
I was a strawberry guy. They turned me into a strawberry guy.
That was very fun. I also, before we sign off here, I want to point out that Inspectors is the name of it is capital I, lowercase n, capital S, Pectors, Inspectors.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, it is.
That is amazing.
Know it. You absolutely know
that is amazing.
I know.
It's fun.
I feel like I just said all this stuff on this game show, and then I was like, an old game from 2004. Like, everyone's like, fuck that. Yeah. Just deleting everything you just said from my brain.
Listen, like, Eric plays bridge. Come on. You have chops.
I know. Yeah, I play euchre. I know how to play euchre.
I've played euchre. Canasta? Got any canasta heads?
Any like sleepaway camp card game? Like, don't get Eric started.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, we'll have to have you back to talk about actual old games. No.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Go for 90 minutes.
We're going to talk about Go. Yeah, it's all going to be, wait, Jay. No, so thank you so much.
You joke,
Chris,
but I could talk about Go for an hour if we really wanted to do it.
Subscribe, follow.
Yeah, subscribe.
We have Go friends, yeah.
Follow here.
Yeah, check out Join the Party, check out Stillfleet, and soon Danse Macabre, and we promise you don't have to play Go or even chess. But that's cool if you do. They're fun too.
It's super cool.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much, Eric and Amanda. Y'all rock. Multitude rocks. And keep doing what you're doing. Very inspiring.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to Why We Roll. Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline. If
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on Twitch and what used to be Twitter at WhyWeRoll, and on Instagram at whyweroll.pod.
You can find out more about Dance Macabre at timespaceplace.itch.io/dance-macabre.
You can find out more about Stillfleet at stillfleet.com. Thanks for listening.
Every hero strikes out on their adventure for a different reason.
To prove myself worthy of my mother's praise.
To write my own story and discover who I really am.
To prove to my family that I am more than they believe me to be.
To revive the god that has chosen me.
But when the fragile balance of the world is in jeopardy, and sinister forces move in the darkness, heroes will be tested, pushed to their limits and beyond. And it will be left to them to determine if they are up to the task. There is a darkness rising. Will they be able to overcome the challenges and meet this evil head-on?
For my god.
For my story.
For my freedom.
For the world.
To restore the balance. Modified Role Season 2, The Chronicles of Erin, a D&D 5e actual play podcast. New season, new characters, new story. Find us on all the usual podcasting apps or at modifiedrole.com.